Hey guys, I am Carlos Colon with Georgia Perimeter Homes, and today we're going to be talking about why do real estate deals or contracts fall through. Thanks. Thanks for joining us, you guys. So let's jump right into it. So what we're really talking about here is you're trying to buy a house, or let's say you're trying to sell a house, and something doesn't work out for some reason. What we're going to talk about is really the deal terminates, so the contract terminates altogether, and a property then comes back on the market, or maybe it gets taken off the market altogether. And so that's what we mean by it falls through, or falls apart, or it comes out of contract. So let's jump into kind of some of the explanations here, because it's not really a straight narrow path to an answer. So we're going to talk about the most common first. The most common reason why this happens is usually the terms of the agreement. What I mean by that is when a contract's put together, there's certain protections for the buyer, including their inspection period, most of those protections are all for the buyer, but some of them are for the seller, and it could terminate for any of those reasons that are within the contract. To name some of them, due diligence, which is the inspection period for the buyer, is one of the biggest ones. Now, due diligence is not just an inspection period. Due diligence is actually an option to purchase period, and so what that means is the buyer could actually back out for any reason under the sun. To give you an example, let's say you go, hey, I love this home, let's get into the contract. We get into the contract. Then all of a sudden, 5 days later, into a 10-day due diligence period, the buyer goes, oh my God, this other home just hit the market. It's way better for the same price. Well, guess what? They can terminate and just move on to that next one for any reason. So that's one of the reasons. Now, second thing that might happen during that, for example, would be the financing period. That's a protection for the buyer, and it just means that the buyer's protected against the denial for the loan. But realistically, no matter what the financing period is, being declined for the loan is one of the other reasons why deals fall apart. So the buyer thinks he's approved or thinks they can get the loan to buy this house, and all of a sudden halfway through or some point during the contract, they realize they can't. And so it falls apart and goes back to the market. Another reason would be the appraisal. So let's say you said, all right, I'll buy this home for $400,000, but I got to get a loan, and I need it to appraise for $400,000, and all of a sudden the appraisal comes in for $300,000, and you're like, well, I don't have the money for the difference, and the seller says, well, go kick sand, because I'm not going to sell it to you for $100,000 lower. And so that might be a very good reason why it falls apart there as well. Special stipulations is another term of the contract, and those are, agreements that maybe the property has a lot of land, maybe it has, 40 acres or something, and the survey for that is not the way it was expected to be, and the buyers are not happy with it. It could terminate for those reasons. Or maybe there's an agreement where something was supposed to be turned in during a certain period of time, and it wasn't, and so there's a breach of contract on one side or the other. And the last best example I could give you is closing dates being missed. That's a very common one. So, and that's a term of the agreement in which, let's say you say, okay, I'm going to close this, and I'm going to buy this property and finish it out within 30 days. All of a sudden it's day 30, and you're like, well, I'm not ready to close, my loan's not done. And then you extend it for a week or two, and you're both in agreement, but then it extends again, and all of a sudden the seller goes, I'm done with this. You can either buy this or you can't. That's another very common reason why this falls apart. So at that point, the seller has several options, but everything we just talked about is really the terms of the agreement. So that's number one. Number two is really the condition of the home. And so the home itself might be the reason why a deal falls apart. So during an inspection, maybe there's something majorly wrong with the house. Maybe the foundation or the roof itself is in really bad shape and needs a lot of repairs that the buyer nor the seller can afford to do right then and there. And so maybe they pull it off in order to do that repair, or they decide, okay, well, I just need the money to do this, so I just can't sell this right now. Another one might be maybe there's mold in the house, or maybe there's termites that we need to get taken care of, and the buyer gets terrified and terminates the deal because of that. Another one that's not so common would be encroachments and easements on a property. So let's say you expect to have a 1 acre property, and all of a sudden you realize that the neighbor's house is actually on your property. And you're like, well, I'm not okay with that. I want my property to be my property. I don't want anybody else's house on mine. And you didn't know this going into it. Well, this happens all the time. So it happens frequently in very dense or populated areas. And so this might be another reason why it happens. So condition of the property is really number 2. And number 3 is maybe a severe last second, either a stability or a life-changing occurrence that happens either on the buy side or the seller side. So for example, whether the buyer gets terminated from work and they have no more income coming in at that point, and they go, whoa, we need to figure this out first, or we can't close on this anyway. Or it might happen on the seller side. That's happened frequently too, because obviously the seller has to have somewhere to go. And if they got terminated from their job, all of a sudden they can't approve for that new loan to buy the next house. And so that happens all the time. Something that also has happened in the past is also there might be a death in the family that makes the family sit back and go, hey, we need to, we need some us time. We don't need any more added chaos right now. We're going to pull it off the market for, the time being. And then we might put it back on the market later. And so going along with those lines would be health issues, major health issues on either side. Of course, through, 2020 and 2021, through coronavirus, for example, that became one of the big ones. Is health issues in families and health concerns that made people sit back for a couple months and go, whoa, maybe not right now. Let's make sure everything's okay before we proceed with this process. So I hope that helps. That's a brief synopsis of things that could happen during the contract period that cause it to terminate. So it doesn't necessarily mean that there's anything wrong with the property, but it could. And so make sure to ask those questions. And if you have any questions like that, you should ask your real estate agent to kind of find out what the history is, why the property's still on the market or coming back on the market, that way to make sure nothing's wrong. And if you need help with this, please give us a call. Our number is 770-314-1285, or if you want to check out some properties that are available for sale right now, check out our website at www.georgiaperimeterhomes.com. Thanks. Bye.